I struggle to sugarcoat things. And most of the time, I don't think that's a flaw, but sometimes I do think it would be useful to have a little sliver of that, a little touch of that, because it's an ability to connect with even more people if you're able to adjust your delivery in a way that doesn't immediately trigger some people's defenses. When I think about the people that I find the most relatable and the people I resonate with the most, it's people that I can feel have experienced a lot of pain and suffering, whether it's emotional or physical, psychological, mental, whatever, because I know that they have the ability to understand me, and there's a much higher likelihood they will accept me and they won't judge me. This is the reason why I'm so relatable. People constantly tell me how relatable I am, how much what I'm saying resonates. The reason why, a large part of it, is because I have been through a lot of pain, and people can feel that. Even if it's just through this screen, you can feel it. You can feel it in the way that a person talks, in the way that they talk about their experiences, in the insights that they have, in the wisdom that they share, in the lessons that they've learned, in the perspectives that they have on life, on relationships, on purpose, on the meaning of life. And another part of it is that there's something that is very true when someone shares something vulnerable and personal from inside, especially when it's something that they're maybe not super comfortable sharing, or they have a lot of shame around, and they have a lot of fear that people are going to judge them. And the ironic part is that it's usually those moments and those shares that end up resonating with the most people in the deepest way, because those are the most universal experiences. So whether it's talking about things that you've struggled with, traumatic experiences that you've had, if you've struggled with addiction, if you've struggled with other self-destructive habits, if you've struggled with abuse, if you've been the perpetrator of abuse, if you've been on the receiving end, if you just have unpopular, contrarian opinions about society, about culture, all of the things that you are afraid to express because of the reactions of others, those are the very things that you must share with the world, because I promise you, like, this is how you resonate with people. This is how you make an impact. This is how you affect other people's lives in a positive way. If you want to help people, let's say you've been through a lot of challenges in life, or specific painful events or circumstances, and you want to help other people who are going through the same thing, you have to be able to share about that in a raw way. You maybe don't have to share every single detail, but you can't sugarcoat things, and you don't want to really soften it, because that detracts from the relatability. Because if I dealt with something really painful and I was struggling a lot, which I have, and then I'll seek out people online, right? Different coaches or people to work with, or find people on YouTube, someone else who has been through what I've been through. And if those people weren't honest and didn't just give all of the raw details of their experience, I would still feel very alone. I would feel like, yeah, see, but their experience, it wasn't as bad as mine. So they don't really know. They're not really going to be able to help me, because what have they been through? Whereas if there's someone who is just sharing and is so open about what they've been through and is able to really open up about the deepest, darkest aspects of their pain, so many more people will relate to that. And I know you might find that hard to believe, but it's true. Pain is a bridge that connects us. The unspoken grief and betrayal and loneliness and fear, most people carry a version of this, but they don't always have language for it. So it can be so helpful when you find someone who does have language for it, who can put words to it, and that validates your experience. So even when I speak about experiences that I've had, I'm not trying to give advice. I'm just naming things. I'm just naming things out loud that I have felt, that I've witnessed, that I've experienced, that I've thought about. And a lot of times these are just things that people haven't heard out loud yet from another person. So I want to tell you a story, not a very long story about my high school boyfriend. So this is the one, if you watched my alcohol video, quitting alcohol, it was that boyfriend that I had broken up with at the end of high school. When he broke up with me, well, we went on a break that just turned into never dating again. When he broke up with me, and I was so young, I was 18. I was so traumatized. This is an example of your survival instincts kicking in to keep you alive because your body thinks that you are dying. And this is just how powerful emotion is and how emotion interacts with your physiology. He broke up with me and he brought me home. We were at the mall. I had just bought him some hats at Lids. He received a phone call while we were leaving the mall. It was another girl who was his ex-girlfriend. I then obviously had caught him, and he somehow tried to talk his way out of it and probably realized that he was totally busted. So he told me that we needed to go on a break. I was crying. He dropped me off at my house, and I was in shock. I was in shock. And I got into my house and my sister's boyfriend was over, and he was a good friend of ours. I remember coming in the kitchen and I was crying, and my sister's boyfriend and my mom were in the kitchen. And my sister's boyfriend asked me what was wrong. I sat down at the kitchen table and I started to try to say what happened, and I couldn't. I started hyperventilating. I started actually hyperventilating uncontrollably, which I don't know how many times that's actually happened to me. I think as a small child, it happened a couple of times. By the way, that's like a huge sympathetic nervous system, autonomic nervous system response. And that's signaling like extreme danger. When that's happening in your body, you're in a massive fight or flight response. So I was hyperventilating and I was trying to say, broke up with me. You know, and I'm like losing it completely. And in that moment, that was my body just trying to survive. Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional, which I did not expect because this was 20 years ago. But it was, yeah, I think that was pivotal. That experience was pivotal in my life, and not in a good way. My body experienced that breakup as a threat to my sense of safety and belonging. Because in adolescence, especially, the brain is hypersensitive to social rejection because acceptance equals survival. Hyperventilation is part of the fight or flight stress response. So my body was preparing for a threat that it didn't fully understand, but it felt incredibly real. So my heart rate increased. I'm preparing to run or fight. Breathing becomes shallow and rapid. And that's your body's trying to pull in more oxygen. Sometimes you start to feel dizzy. You start to go numb. You become disconnected. And these are signs of dissociation, or your body trying to shut down overwhelm, aka the freeze response, the beginning of the freeze response. So my nervous system didn't know that I was just getting dumped. It thought I'm being abandoned. And to a young nervous system, abandonment feels like death, because it wasn't just the loss of a boyfriend. It was the loss of being chosen. It was the loss of being enough. It was the collapse of my sense of self-worth, of my identity, of safety. All of it was wrapped up in that relationship. And this happened weeks before I was leaving for college. So my whole world was unraveling. It was terrifying. This was the beginning of a very long pattern of dissociation. Because for me, staying with that experience, I didn't have the tools for that at the time. I didn't have the capacity at all. Dissociation was the only option. It's either that or death. So, you just choose to check out. And this has a lot to do with people's level of sensitivity. People who are very empathic, they're extremely sensitive, and they've learned, whether unconsciously, usually unconsciously, to kind of externalize feeling. And so they learned that it wasn't safe to be in their body and just aware of themselves and what it felt like to be them, because maybe needs weren't being met. Their parents weren't responding to them fast enough. Their parents were arguing. They felt like their caregivers were always preoccupied or busy and not attentive enough. So the child learns I need to kind of expand my little sensory tentacles and I need to feel what's going on out here, what's going on, what's wrong with mom, what's wrong with dad. We start to feel other people outside of us. And then we start to identify with that. And we say, oh, that's how I feel. I just am absorbing everything around me and then I take it in and that's how I feel. People who are this sensitive, they have a heightened ability to attune to others. Not everyone is able to do that. It can be a gift in some ways. Like, it's a skill. I won't call it a gift. It's a skill, though. And not everyone has it. People who do have it tend to experience a wider range of feeling and a wider range of emotions. For those people, life is more dramatic. I don't know that that's the right word because that can have a negative connotation. I don't mean it that way. But it's more colorful. It's more dimensional. It's more complex. It's more intense. And so I want to say this because people who have been through a lot of difficult experiences and maybe they have different behaviors and coping mechanisms, addictions, substances that they turn to dissociate and to numb. It makes sense. It makes sense that you do that or that a person does that. The people who, and this is kind of the funny part about it, is that the people who kind of just come home and have a couple beers every night or smoke a joint or watch TV, you know, those couple beers can blur the pain for many people. For a highly sensitive person, an empathic person, it barely turns down the volume on all the noise. So you end up chasing more shots, more scrolling, more exercise, more restricted eating, whatever it takes to lessen the intensity of life. And on the outside, that looks to people like very extreme, too much, all these behaviors. And in a way, they're not wrong. But on the inside, to the person, it feels like it's not too much at all. It's not even enough yet because I still feel it all too much. It's too intense. And that's not the only reason that my voice lands with people, but just the fact that I speak about the things that so many of us struggle with that we don't talk about. And maybe it's because we've literally never even thought of these things until you hear someone say it and it hits you. Oh my God, yeah, what am I doing? Or this is exactly how I feel. I've never heard anyone say it before. This is the kind of pain that people carry and they don't talk about it. And, you know, people may not be hyperventilating, but the pain is there somewhere. Feelings of not being chosen, feelings that they're not good enough, experiences of being abandoned, of being rejected, of being told that you're too much and the fear that you're not enough. I try to speak to those places just because I've been there and I know what that's like and how much life that robs you of. So there's a reason that people DM me all the time, things that they've never told anyone. And people in real life tell me things they've never told anyone. And it's because of that relatability. It's because of the honesty. It's an energy. It may not even be the words that you're sharing. It's the energy that you give someone that says, you're okay here. You couldn't tell me anything that would be too much. You couldn't say anything to me that would be too much. You couldn't say anything to me that would shock me. You couldn't say anything to me that would make me think that you're a bad person. I do not believe that you or anyone else is wrong. I don't think that you or anyone else has made mistakes. I believe that people are in pain. That's what I believe. And I believe that people are suffering, and I believe that hurt people hurt people. You could tell me the most heinous shit that you have done. You could, like, the things that you are the most ashamed of, that you would never want anyone to know, and I promise you, I won't bat an eye. It takes a certain level of honesty to be able to sit with someone, because the reason why I say it takes honesty is that I need to be able to be very honest with myself about who I really am and about the things I've done and the things I've said and the things I've felt about other people, to be able to almost like reference those things when I'm witnessing another person. Because as long as I can remain in that space of understanding, the moment that I disconnect from the feelings that I've had and the things I've said to people and the things I've done and my shadow, the moment that I disconnect from those things, it becomes really easy for me to then judge the other person, to condemn them, to make them wrong. But as long as I can stay connected to those like dark parts of myself, that person feels safe because I'm not trying to hide my humanity from them. So I think that's what people are feeling when they say that my content is hitting really hard for them. I think that's what they mean. I think a lot of people are carrying pain that they've never truly met because they've been able to outsmart it. They've been able to outwork it. They've been able to distract themselves from it, but it's still there. It's still waiting to be seen. And when someone starts speaking from that place, it wakes something up in them. And not because it's inspirational, it's because it's familiar. I just got chills. What are you still powering through instead of sitting with? What parts of yourself are you refusing to acknowledge, even though you know that they're still there? And who would you be if you actually let yourself feel the things that you avoid? There is a different kind of pain that doesn't get talked about as much, and that is the pain of forgetting who you used to be. I think it doesn't get talked about as much because people don't even remember this happening. So many people forget what it was like to be an innocent child who naturally was very confident, who was naturally bold and expressive and free. And then slowly over time, you become quieter and quieter. You start watching other people rather than expressing. You start doubting yourself rather than believing in yourself. And this all happens because of our experiences. So it's unique to every individual. What kind of upbringing did you have? What types of influences shaped your experience? Did you have teachers that were supportive? Or did you have teachers that were constantly reprimanding you or shaming you or embarrassing you? Did you have peers that were embarrassing you? Did you get bullied? Did you bully other people? Did you have a lot of friends? Were your parents encouraging? Or did they always have really high expectations that you could never meet? Were they always telling you to keep it down? Did you always feel like you were just too much for them to handle? Because this erosion of confidence does not happen all at once. It happens over hundreds, if not thousands of little moments. Being told to tone it down, watching caregivers who weren't confident themselves, feeling embarrassed because you're expressing too loudly. That's a slow death of your inner self. And most people do not realize that it's happened because you're a child. You can't realize it until years later, decades later, when you are already buried now under layers of conditioning that trained you to fit in, to blend in. This has been the thing that I have become so focused on transforming in my life, because it's always been this journey of self-discovery and of spiritual growth and of healing. And a lot of that work is very deep introspection and really exploring our past and our patterns and our family and our history and our upbringing and our psyche. What I realized for myself was that so much of my experience was intertwined with my relationship to my mother energetically, and how much her energy, my adoption of that energetic experience, how much that shaped my life. And I didn't even know who I was or what I felt like until until I was away from that, until I had enough space away from these influences. And I'm not saying it's nothing bad about my family or anyone. It's just that when you're that sensitive and you've been that empathic from a young age, that you've externalized feeling everything outside of you, you don't know what you feel like. You don't know. You have no idea. You literally think you're just a victim to any external inputs, whatever it is. People, sound, other people's emotions, noises, anything. And it's not until you have some space with yourself, with just yourself, that you start to realize what you feel like, who you are. And then, and only then, are you able to kind of go back and explore, now, where did this all begin? And where did my current beliefs, my current operating system, my current perspective, where did that all come from? I have a hard time believing that anybody gets through this life without some flavor of that experience. And that's why it's so important for me to talk about. Because the more that I talk about it and other people relate, that also validates me and says, yeah, see, you're not wrong. You're not crazy. You're not the only one. See, when you talk about it and all these people say, fuck, yeah, me too. It's like, yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not fucking insane, you know? All right, you guys. Well, YouTube thinks that this is a really good video to watch next. So I suggest you listen, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.